Hello there, my name is Sorty Meeks. Just checking to see if my audio is working. It is. Alrighty, so my name is Sorty Meeks. This is going to be a marathon run recording of me playing The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening 2019 for the Nintendo Switch. And yeah, I'm going to get started here. So this is a remake of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening and Link's Awakening DX for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. And yeah, go ahead and get started here. 3, 2, 1, and start it. So we're waking up here in this little household, and the girl there, her name is Merritt, and this guy is named Tarrant. If you're familiar with Ocarina of Time, with Malon and Talon, those two characters are kind of the basis for Malon and Talon. So in this game, we're playing Link. He woke up on this island, and that girl back there, Malon, found him and brought him back to her house. So Link has been out adventuring. So this is the same Link from A Link to the Past. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go try to get stronger in case something comes to threaten Hyrule. So he goes out on a boat by himself, kind of like a dork, and gets shipwrecked up on this island here. And so Marin rescues him, and then this owl over here comes and is like, hey, if you want to leave this island, you have to collect the instruments of the sirens and wake up the windfish who is sleeping on top of a mountain inside a giant white and pink egg. So this is a little bit of a strange Zelda game. This is probably one of the weirdest ones. As you probably have noticed already, there's a Chain Chomp here. Chain Chomp is named Bow Wow. There's a number of various like Mario characters that show up in this game. Terran back at Marin's father back there at the house. He's kind of loosely based off Mario. There's also a character loosely based off of Luigi. Yeah, there's even some Kirby. There's an anti-Kirby character or enemy that you can see. So throughout the run, we'll see a little bit of that as we go along. But yeah, so we're on this island. The owl has kind of given us this quest, and so now we're working to go get the first key to the first dungeon. In order to do that, though, we got to get some magic powder here. And to make magic powder, we got to get a mushroom. And this here is Steven, this moblin here. I have named Steven. Steven's been pretty nice to us today, so that's been good. I have a tendency to name mobs in this game, so we'll meet a number of those as we go along. But yeah, so I am doing a category here called Any Percent No Hinox Work. And it's just, well, it's unfortunate. It's just like any percent, except we don't use one particular glitch in it, which is called the Hinox Work glitch. And there's a number of reasons for that, and we'll kind of discuss that as we get into it. But this is a pretty cool run. I like it a lot. We'll end up doing some pretty cool tricks with it still, even without the Hinox warps. And yeah, overall, I think this is actually kind of one of the more fun categories in the game. You have a lot of glitches that are really fun without them being too difficult or burdensome, and so forth. But anyway, so we got the magic powder, and you'll probably have noticed that witch character Oh, this is Jackie here, by the way. Jackie has been very nice to us today. The Moblins are being nice to us. And this is Henry. Henry is not being so nice today. Oh, so this raccoon, or if you're Japanese savvy, this tanuki here in the forest, if we had headed north here without the magic powder, it would have warped us back to a different part of the forest, and we couldn't progress. Turns out, though, when we throw the magic powder on it, it's actually Terran. Terran went into the forest and picked some random mushrooms, and decided to eat them, and it turned him into a raccoon. And yeah, don't eat random mushrooms you find in the forest. But anyway, that witch back there, you probably noticed her. She looked kind of like the witch from Link to the Past. And kind of a similar situation here. This is kind of a unofficial sequel. Well, I say unofficial. It is an official sequel. But it was kind of planned as an unofficial sequel to Link to the Past. It was kind of developed by one of the Game Boy teams at the time, Nintendo, and they weren't too particularly worried about, you know, lore or continuity or really the game making much sense at all. And so we kind of just wound up with this very strange, very interesting game. So this is the first dungeon, and a lot of the dungeons in this game are opened up with keys, so we often have to go on a little side quest before each dungeon to get a key. Or sometimes we skip it, as you'll see a bit later on. I like to call this the Caterpie dungeon because the little statues out front look like Caterpie. This is our first Pokemon gym. But it's also known as Tail Cave or Wurmplast. So you've probably already noticed that we are playing the game in German, which is the fastest language to play this game in. You'll often see speedrunners playing games in different languages. Usually Japanese ends up being the fastest language, but in this game, all the text in any language moves about the same. There we go. Well, that's actually some pretty tricky movement there. All the text moves about the same, but in German, which we play in, it has the least amount of text boxes. So it's ultimately faster. So back there, this dungeon is kind of interesting because we don't have much equipment to do fancy movement with. We're kind of limited to Link's basic skills, but we're able to do some pretty cool like timing. I kind of messed up a trick there, unfortunately. You can kind of boost off of those traps there and so forth, but it's kind of like an interesting basic movement type dungeon. So here we just picked up the Rock's Feather, or as I like to call it, the Kazooie Feather. If you're familiar with Banjo-Kazooie, it kind of looks like Kazooie's coloring. And it's kind of unique because it's not the first game where Link could jump, but it's the first kind of like top-down, traditional perspective Zelda game where Link can jump. And you wouldn't really get another like dedicated jump button. You get some jumping in the mobile Zelda games, but for like the console games, you really don't get any until really Breath of the Wild, which is kind of interesting. It took that long to get there. So in each dungeon, so I will be talking about the lore here, and kind of getting some spoilers as we go along. This game is a remake of I think 25-year-plus old game, so I feel like the spoilers aren't too impactful. I think actually on the box of this game, they actually spoil the big plot. But in each dungeon we'll be fighting the boss, which in this game is called a nightmare. And this fight is going not the way I would like it to. But in each dungeon, we will be fighting a nightmare. We'll learn a bit more why they're called nightmares in this game. But again, if you're familiar with Link to the Past, we'll be facing a very familiar boss here. So Moldorm's back. Fortunately, he's not as annoying as the Moldorm in Link to the Past, but they can still be kind of annoying in runs. I should have been counting my jumps there, but I wasn't, so I'm just going to kind of guess. And yeah. So, it's a pretty easy fight if Moldorm behaves. A lot of times, Moldorm will just like be like, "Hey, I'm just going to push you off the ledge," or just, you know, completely invade your space and just kill you really quickly. And kind of have to hit that reset button. So yeah, so here we have got our first instrument of the sirens, the Mushel Gege? Gege? I don't know. I will try not to butcher German too much in this. Well, it's basically the muscle, I think it's the muscle cello in German, but it's like the full moon cello in English, I believe. So we get some message there that tells us to go to the swamp next. And our owl friend here will come back and talk to us. Again, another character where in Ocarina of Time, the owl, Gabora? Is that the owl's name? I can never remember. Is based off of the owl in this game as well. So we'll be coming up here soon to our first glitch of the game. So first, we come back to the village here. And these kids are all excited about something, and this lady out here in front of the house, she's all upset. And that chain shot before is gone. So what's happening in the plot is you come out of the dungeon, and that chain chomp named Bow Wow has been kidnapped. And you're supposed to go through this whole side quest where you rescue Bow Wow from the Moblin chieftain or whatever. And Bow Wow helps you get into the second dungeon. Well, that's kind of slow. So instead we're going to kidnap this Kuko here. And we're going to go... This positioning may be kind of bad. It was not bad. Nice. Yeah, we're just going to use that like there with the chicken and abuse some hitboxes and just kind of bounce Link up on the trees. So we will learn that a lot of things in this game have hitboxes, and a lot of those hitboxes are kind of wonky, to say the least. Oops. Ideally you want to get both torches there, and ideally you don't want to get hit by that spark either, but sometimes things don't go the way you plan. But yeah, so you're supposed to get Bow Wow, and he's supposed to eat those flowers out front and let you into this dungeon. But as I said, that's slow, and we just bypass it. But yeah, there will be a lot more hitbox abuse as we go on. So another glitch in this game, which shoutouts to Adamo. If you want to learn more about it, go to YouTube and search for the Hinox Warp History by Adamo. But there is a glitch in this dungeon and two other dungeons, and also the Dompe Builder dungeons, where you can take advantage of a mid-boss in this game called the Hinox. If you're familiar with Zelda creatures, it's the big giant Cyclops kind of character that we'll be fighting here very shortly. And you can do a very precise, very specific trick with this Hinox that basically warps you to the instrument room of the dungeon. And you can just clear the dungeon and get out of it really quickly. Well, I know Hinox Warp, we don't do that. We just go in and fight this thing. And that was a Hinox there. So normally, if you're playing on any percent, you would go over to the left corner, and like it would have to do this you have to take damage on the same frame that it picks you up and tries to throw you. Has a lot of complexity to it. And initially this category, shout out to some boos here. Again, some Mario characters in a Zelda game, why not? There's a number of reasons why the no Hinox warp category was made. Kind of the initial reason is that in Eagle's Tower, Dungeon 7 in this game, the trick to do that Hinox warp is very, very precise. It's very easy to basically lose your run there, usually about an hour in. You have this frame perfect trick, and it causes just like a lot of difficulty and frustration, and we kind of just wanted to create a category where we just didn't have to worry about that. And recently, I think within like the past month, we found the D2 Dungeon 2 Hinox warp there, which is not as precise to perform, but it kind of has the unfortunate side effect that it only works 1/3 of the time. So running any percent in this game means that you're going to lose 2/3 of your runs within the first 10 to 12 minutes. And that can be kind of frustrating, so no Hinox warp is kind of becoming a little bit more of a popular category now because we could just not worry about that glitch at all. So here back at the village, we did some thievery. We went into the shop here and stole a shovel, and the shopkeeper is going to get really mad and kill us. So this is attended. This is part of the game. It was in the original games as well, where you could just go to the shop, get the shopkeeper to look the other way, and just steal. So here we're just going to grab this bow here. And we're just going to walk off with these items. And the only side effects is, A, if you ever enter the shop again, the owner kills you like he just did. And B, everyone in the game from now on will call you Thief. So, I'm taking a bit of a safety checkpoint here. So we're about to do another little trick where we're going to use some hitboxes. And this is called Villa Skip. See if I can get it here. Yeah, we got the first part. The second part. Try to get the third part here. So normally at this part of the game, in order to get into Dungeon 3, you have to go on this big, long side quest. Where you have to go meet this guy named Richard, and he makes you go to this castle that he used to live in, and you have to find these 5 golden leaves inside the castle. You know, just this really long side quest. But we can skip all that by just abusing again that pincer up there and doing some very specific movement. We can use the hitbox on an enemy just to climb up on top of the trees and just skip that side quest completely. It saves us a lot of time. And this is Richard's villa right here. That's why we call it Villa Skip. This is the villa. And we just completely skip that side quest. Which is a little bit unfortunate, because I kind of like Richard. He's got like a bunch of frogs that he keeps as pets, and like they're super cute, and the music is really cute. But yeah, so we're about ready to go into Dungeon 3 here, which is Key Cavern, or as it's known in German here is Teufelsvilla? I don't know. So an interesting side effect. You probably would have noticed that back in D2, we didn't actually finish Dungeon 2. We picked up the power bracelet after killing those boos, and we just left. We didn't finish it. And that's because we are going to finish that dungeon actually at the end of the game. And we do that because we pick up a piece of equipment in this dungeon called the Pegasus Boots, which make Link go really fast. And we're able to actually skip the boss in Dungeon 2 later in the game. with the boots, and that's actually faster than just fighting the boss. The boss fight there is probably the slowest in the game, or one of the slowest. Now, unfortunately, I picked up a power up there called the Guardian Acorn, and there's also, you'll see a piece of power spawn there too. Ideally, we don't want to pick those up. There is one instance in the game where it's helpful to pick up a piece of power, but generally you want to avoid these. Unfortunately, that Guardian Acorn just kind of got in my way, and there wasn't really a way for me to avoid it. Which is unfortunate, but it happens. The Guardian Acorn boosts your defense, the piece of power doubles your power, and increases your movement speed as well. Piece of power technically I think ends up balancing out in terms of like time loss versus time gain, except in certain situations. The Guardian Acorn though is just always slow, unfortunately. But anyway, yeah, so we will be going back to Dungeon 2 later. And, yeah. But this boss this dungeon we will finish completely. So these are Dodongo snakes, which are, I would argue the worst mini-boss in the game. I'm sure many others would probably agree with me. As you can see, it's kind of like an auto-scroller. You're kind of just having to wait on these things to move where you need them to, and sometimes their hitboxes are a little wonky, and yeah, they're kind of a pain. So here are the Pegasus boots, and with these we can go fast, and this is kind of, I feel like, where the speedrun kind of really starts. Because now we have our our main equipment. We have the Rock's Feather, we have the Pegasus boots, and now all of a sudden our movement is just a lot faster. So we're able to do a lot of running and jumping, and just maneuvering in ways that are pretty quick. Oh, so I never talked about it. I started talking about it, I didn't finish talking about it. So one of the side effects about skipping dungeon number 2, or not finishing the boss in dungeon number 2, is that the bombs don't become available to buy in the store in the village until you beat dungeon 2. So we're not able to buy bombs. At any percent, you're actually able to buy bombs now, I believe. I think you have to get the instrument to do it. Ow. And, so in order to get bombs, we picked them up in here, and you probably noticed, like, I kind of went on a bit of a side trail there to pick up some extra bombs for the Dodongo snakes. This is ideally not how you want to do this room. There we go. That is unfortunately slow. So we have to pick up bombs, and our bomb count is very important in this game, and I'll be keeping a close eye on that. So here we picked up some rupees here, which we will be using later to buy a song. Also, I just noticed I have missed my split up here. It's just been going on. Yeah, and I'm actually going to pick up some extra bombs here, just to help pad out the bomb pad out the bomb count, in case we run into any trouble later on. Make it a little bit more marathon safe here. In general, this is a pretty marathon safe game, but if you're not careful, some things can go awry on you. But as you can see, in this dungeon, it's each dungeon kind of has its own theme, and this dungeon is key themed. You have to collect a bunch of keys to open up those key blocks, which personally I'm not a big fan of. I keep kind of hoping we find some way to skip over those key blocks. But we're through all that now. We're ready to fight the boss here, which is a big giant slime named, I'll let them introduce themselves here, Gigazole. So Gigazole's pretty easy. We just have to hit its eye there a bunch, and split it in half. Oh, And I actually messed that up. You ideally want to get... There we go. Ideally you want to kill the first blob before they jump. But I actually still got it on the first cycle. Barely, but I did get it. You can technically zero cycle that boss, but it is very difficult. So I am picking up a heart container here. Unlike the original Game Boy games, oh, and we've got the Nixon clock in here, which is the mermaid bell. I believe it's the sea lily bell in English. I'm trying to remember what I was saying now. Oh, so I picked up the heart container here. Heart containers in this game are optional. Unlike the original Game Boy games, you had to pick them up in the originals. But in this game, they kind of give you that option. If you want to skip them, you can. So it does save time to skip them, obviously. But it is very difficult to survive in this game on low hearts. I generally stick, usually in my runs, with about 5 or 6. On this run, I'll probably end up going like 7 or 8 just for safety. World record, I believe, has at 4 hearts. So it's just kind of like up to the player and their skill level and what they're comfortable with doing. Alright, so we've gotten through the 3rd dungeon now. And kind of the next part of this game is we're going into this little shrine here. And this is called the Dream Shrine. Or Traum Shrine. And Link is going to go to sleep and have this dream here, which is a little bit odd because later on we're going to kind of learn that Link is already in a dream. He's in someone else's dream, which is makes it a little bit, you know, weird. But somehow he ends up dreaming here too, and he dreams about the ocarina there, or ocarina, and we grab the ocarina, which is the first game where, because Link to Past referred to it as a flute, in this game it is referred to as an ocarina, which again is kind of taken into Ocarina of Time. So here we come back, we talk to Marin. And she's like, oh, you have the ocarina, let me teach you the song. And so she teaches the song, and I'll just let you listen to that, because it's real pretty. Always a good time to stretch the old fingers out. There we go. Now remember to do the most important trick in the game. It's called Encore Skip. And we got it! So if you say no to her question there, she actually, the song is, they redo the song. And that wastes a ton of time. So you always want to make sure you answer yes there and get what I like to lovingly call Encore Skip. So the next part of the game here is, we're supposed to go do this whole side quest with Marin back there where we go to the beach and go on a date with her and take her up to this place called Animal Village, which we sadly don't see in this run. And we go get the key to the next dungeon called the Angler Key for the Angler Tunnel dungeon, or D4. If you want to be speedrunnery about it. And that whole side quest is, again, fairly slow, so we kind of want to skip it. So we're doing a trick here called AK Skip. Sadly, AK Skip involves the abuse of this poor fox here. So apologies to anyone who's, you know, feeling bad for this fox here. I like to say that this is fully consensual. The fox actually enjoys being hit in the face with a sword repeatedly. They love having boulders thrown at them. Yeah, and so, but we're going to use the fox here because we're going to abuse some hitboxes again. And I'll kind of explain what goes on here after I pull it off here. It's a little bit, it's probably one of the harder tricks in the game. Oops, well, that wasn't quite it. I jumped a bit early there. Grab a heart and try again. So we're taking advantage. You probably noticed after D2 I went and bought something from a lady named Tracy. And the thing I bought there was a revive potion, which, as you just noticed, like just revive right now. And what happens is we, when you die in this game up in the air, Link kind of, his hitbox kind of goes up in the air as well. He kind of ends up floating a bit. And the hitbox of that jump there, or that keyhole there, is kind of low. Oops, I did not mean to switch that. And because the hitbox is low, we can actually get on top of it, but we need a little bit of a boost, because we're not quite able to get high enough. So if we're able to get the bomb to kill Link, and the fox also jumps up underneath Link and hits him upwards all around the same time, it gives him just enough height to die on top of that key block. And we're able to revive and get into this dungeon early. So here we're also doing another little trick. This is actually not a glitch. It's unintended, but it's not a glitch. But it's called Bomb Jump. And I just messed it up there, so we'll try again. There we go. Play it safe here, grab some parts. And that lets us, again, kind of abuse some of our jumping with the bombs to just kind of cross over that gap and basically skip like 3/4 of the dungeon. So we have another mini-boss here, which we just got the quick kill on. It's actually really hard. Well, we just got the quick kill on that. And this is another dungeon, just like with dungeon number 2. We're just going to grab the flippers here and leave. Now, the reason why we do it in this dungeon is when you beat this dungeon and you go to a certain distance south of the map, you end up having to do a side quest where this ghost appears. This ghost appears and starts following Link around. And the ghost is unfortunately very, very slow. You have to go into a side quest where you take the ghost to its house, and then you take it back to its grave, and it's a big whole thing. And we just skip all that. We wait until the end of the game to beat that dungeon, so we never encounter the ghost and have to do any of that side quest. Oh. So this here is Mambo's Mambo. It's our second song, which I apologize, I kind of talked over it there. It's one of the more fun songs in the game. But it's our second song. This song lets us do some warping around Koholint here. Which is the name of this island, by the way, is Koholint. And as you'll see here, we're able to play our ocarina here and warp over to Seashell Mansion. So now that we have the flippers, we're able to go on and do the next dungeon, which will be dungeon number 5. This is one of my favorite little parts of the game here, where you get to do some fun little dashing. It's very short. But the movement in this game is like a lot of fun. And I would always recommend anyone who wants to play this game, I highly recommend either picking up this run, the No Hinox Warp run, to start with, or maybe Glitchless as well. Just because it's the movement of this game is just like a ton of fun and a really great place to start if you want to learn this speed run. So we are going to swap my bombs here. So this is D5. This opening room here is a bit of a troll. Sometimes you come in here and you get great RNG and you clear it out in no time. Sometimes you get in there and it's just like what you just saw, where all the bats and the Helmer Rock are just all over the place. So this dungeon has a couple of unique things going for it. This dungeon doesn't so much have a theme as it has a reoccurring battle in it. So we will run into a boss here called Master Stalfos. And he has stolen the item for this dungeon. And in order to get the item back, we have to fight him 4 different times. And my cat is currently trying to help me kill the skeletons on the screen. I don't know if you can see her in the camera here or not. But this is Master Stalfos, so we're gonna bomb him a little bit here. He can be a bit of a trolly boss, but we're gonna do our best here. There we go. So we beat him pretty easily there. Sometimes you'll get a little bit too close to his bombs and they'll blow up and things can go very bad very quickly. But we will be fighting him a few more times here. Now on the 4th time, normally what happens is you get the dungeon item, and then you go fight another mini boss, and you get the boss key of the dungeon. And you go fight the boss. But we're actually going to end up skipping all of that. But first here we'll have to do some more Master Stalfos fighting. The dialogue for this guy in English is actually pretty funny. He's kind of just a bit of a dingus. And you end up just basically trolling the poor guy. I actually feel a little bit bad for him. Like, not really, because he's trying to kill us, but, you know. I was a little bit slow on my movement there. Ow. So that's what can happen. Sometimes your opening timing is a little bit off, or you'll be like a frame or 2 late. It's definitely a very peculiar boss. The one, I guess, like negative of this game, and I'm actually going to be making a safety save here, because we will be doing a bit of a trick here that could potentially go bad and we have to reload. But yeah, the one kind of, I guess, like negative downside of this game is that Grezzo, the company who helped remake this for Nintendo, their hitboxes are sometimes kind of hit and miss, pun totally intended. Sometimes their hitboxes are really great, and sometimes they are very, very wonky, and Master Stalfos here is definitely one of the wonky ones. So, here we want to do a trick called Eel Skip, and Master Stalfos is going to drop the hook shot here. And unfortunately, I'm not sure why that happened. That's been happening to me lately. The positioning of that fight kind of went awry there, so we're going to have to do it again. But Master Stalfos there will drop the hook shot, and we're actually going to do an interesting abuse of that. because the hook shot is kind of unique in this game because it jumps up in the air when it spawns. And we're actually able to place a bomb underneath it and move underneath it ourselves. And we'll see what happens when the game tries to put 3 objects on top of each other. It has some interesting effects with that type of stacking. There we go. Our positioning was right this time, so I'll concentrate here. Hopefully we'll get it. Well, fortunately my time was a bit off there. We'll do it one more time here. We'll get it this time. This is why I will probably end up having a safety save for this trick if it happens to go awry, but also B, why I'll probably pad out the run a little bit in terms of estimating time, because it can be potentially frustrating. There we go. There we go. So yeah, so if you do all your timing right, you end up doing a triple stack of objects on each other, and it just zips link up the wall there. There's some specific movement and positioning you have to do and timing, but when you get it, it looks hilarious and it's just really cool. And so we skip the boss of this dungeon, who is the Eel, which is a very slow boss. It has like a lot of RNG involved with it, and we really don't want anything to do with that fight if we can help it. Now the one side effect to that trick is that we don't actually pick up the hook shot, which we do need to finish the run with. Well, you're fortunate there, and we lost a piece of power. I'm actually going to grab any extra hearts I get right now. I'm actually going to grab just as some safety, because the next area is a bit scary with damage. But let's see if we're getting extra hearts. There's an extra heart. There we go. So we have to come back into the dungeon and grab the hook shot, and then we will leave. Now, normally, if this were a PB attempt run, we would have reset there in that dungeon. But anywho, so we finished up Dungeon 5 now. So we're going to go on to Dungeon 6. And this dungeon requires a key as well. And we haven't been able to find a skip for this key yet. Well, keep bonking there. So we actually do have to go on this little side quest here and grab this key. Now if you're playing this game casually, this side quest becomes a little bit interesting. We'll notice our little owl friend here pops up. He tells us some stuff about the southern shrine where we're headed, that we're going to learn some information there. But to kind of sum it up, when we get to the southern shrine and you beat the boss there, if you go in the back room, you find this painting on the wall, and you see this giant whale with wings and a picture of the owl. And that is a depiction of the owl here and the windfish. Concentrate here a little bit. Movement here is actually a bit tricky. These Armos are really scary because they do 2 damage to you if they hit you, which can be really kind of terrifying. I'm actually going to grab these extra arrows here just as safety. Typically I don't grab those, but just to be a little extra cautious there. So, in my splits, when I run this game, on my splits I named this split Grezzo makes bad hitboxes, and that's because Grezzo makes bad hitboxes. This boss on a casual level is unfortunately overly difficult. But we got the key to the next dungeon here, and we're going to take off. But anyway, so in that room up north there, you go up there and you find this mural, and you find out that you're actually inside of the windfish's dream. The windfish has somehow fallen asleep and has dreamed up this island. So this island isn't really real. You're actually in some sort of weird dreamscape. And Link got called up in the dream. And the dream has only started going... It started off peaceful enough, but it started to go awry with the nightmares showing up. And you can kind of see how much damage that Armos did there. It's rather scary. Basically what's going to happen is that, you know, when we wake up the windfish, escape this island might disappear. Which is a little bit uncomfortable to think of, because that means that everyone who lives on this island will also disappear. And by the time you get to this point in the game casually, you'll have like gone on a little date with Marin and gotten like to know her better and a lot of the other characters better, and the idea of basically potentially just erasing these people kind of weighs heavily on your mind, and it's definitely where this game takes a bit of a darker turn. Considering how, you know, colorful and lively it is. Grab a heart here just to pad that out and make it so it's not beeping all the time. But this is Dungeon 6. This is Face Shrine. I always kind of consider this dungeon to be the kind of the difficulty turning point of this game. This dungeon in the speed run is where things start to get a lot more difficult, because you end up having to do some very precise movement in here, some tough tricks, and it's just very easy just to die here and potentially lose a lot of time. So it's actually one of my more practiced dungeons, and I still have a lot of trouble with it even regardless. So it's definitely the part of the run that kind of can really make or break your run. But at the same time, I would say it's also one of my favorite dungeons. I'm going to grab a couple more bombs here for safety. But we also get to see some neat little tricks here coming up. So this room up here is kind of RNG based, and we'll see which way that anti-fairy is going to move. And it went to the right, which is very good. That's the fastest pattern. Sometimes it goes to the left, and you have to use a combination of hookshot and bombs to kill those Wizrogues. And unfortunately, that's kind of slower. We're kind of at the mercy of RNG there. So here we're going to do a little trick called wall surfing. I'll just be quiet and let you enjoy it here. It's actually one of the harder tricks in the game. So yeah, we kind of abuse, again, there's hitboxes on the lamps in this game. Why Grezzo put hitboxes on those lamps, we don't really know, but they're there. So we can kind of abuse those stairs there and just jump up on the wall, and the wall has a hitbox, so we can walk on the wall. There we had some Pols voices, if you're familiar with those from the original Zelda. They don't like noise. So you can kill them with Marin's song. So we have the return of my favorite bosses in this game, the Dongo Snakes. Unfortunately, they're not any better in this dungeon. In fact, they're worse. We have to deal with all these pits now. And it's harder to get the bombs right in front of their mouths at the right timing, and yeah. There's actually a way I've learned to actually skip these bosses, but it's incredibly difficult, and if you mess up, you lose a ton of time. You lose really enough time that you would have to reset the game, so it's just not really worth it. So we kind of just end up fighting those mini bosses again. we just got the nightmare key here. And so we will be wrapping up the dungeon. Got another small key here. So this is another little area where the route kind of deviates if you're doing any percent. So you kind of remember when we did the AK skip for Dungeon 4, we did a death warp thing. And we also talked about the Hinox. So normally that chest in that room there at any percent, we would go get that chest because there's a revive potion in that chest that we would want. But we don't do that in this version. Or this run. Now you notice I picked up a piece of power. This is one of the few places in the game where the piece of power is worth picking up. Because we can grab that ball before Smasher does, and we can finish them off before they pick up the ball, and that's just very quick. And that's really the only time we want to grab a piece of power. It's just for that mini boss fight. But yeah, as I was saying before though, with normally in any percent you go pick up that revive powder because when you get to Dungeon 7, you end up having to do a Hinox warp where you end up having to die and revive. So, but in this category we don't do that. We just skip it and we move on. So we're coming up to the boss of this dungeon. And this is Facade, who's just a giant face. If you grew up with Nickelodeon Jr. as a kid, like me, you might remember the little character that popped up in between cartoons named Face. I always like to think of this as the evil version of Face from Nickelodeon Jr. But this is actually one of the boss fights that was really improved. Unfortunately, I missed a cycle there, so I kind of arranged that. But this fight's a lot more fun and difficult from the original game. I'm kind of being a bit quiet here, because this fight is very difficult. Oh, and we're done. Okay. Actually went faster than I thought it was, because I did miss a bit of a cycle there. I believe I was at full health, so I didn't kill myself. I actually have... It is possible to beat the boss and die at the same time. So after you beat the boss, you just die. But that didn't happen here, fortunately, and we can continue on. I also have enough bombs. I have 10 bombs. This is an area of the game where you have to keep track of your bombs. You can't drop below 7 at this point in the game. You need 7 to get into D8 with. So we did have to keep a close eye on the bomb count. But that was actually a pretty good D6. That's actually one of the better ones I've actually had recently. It always feels good to have like a really good D6. So that was actually a gold split, so I knew that was a pretty quick one. So our elf friend comes back here and he's like, hey, go to Dungeon 7. So we're going to be like, no, we're actually going to go to Dungeon 8 first. So that's another little trick of this game, is that when you beat Dungeon 7 in this game, you get an extra cutscene. When you're up in the mountains, you get this extra little cutscene with Marin, where you have to kind of rescue her, or some moblins or something put her on top of a cliff. And that's very slow, so we end up doing Dungeon 8 first. But in order to do Dungeon 8, we have to do a particular skip called Flame Cave Skip, because normally you can't get into Dungeon 8 without the Mirror Shield. But this run, we never actually get the Mirror Shield. We skip it completely. But our first stop, though, is this place here, which is Signpost Maze, which I always really loved as a kid with this game, or the original games, because you have to kind of go through this maze here. You have to talk to the signs in the order where they point you. So it's definitely like a little. It's really fun in the speedrun because you get to do some really like fun little movement here. That's actually like pretty tricky actually. So, you remember back in Dungeon 3, we picked up a 300 rupees in there. And we picked up 300 rupees specifically for this part of the run. We have to get the Frog Song of Soul. And this is the best song in the game, in my opinion, and I'll let you enjoy it. Alright, so this song is actually kind of divisive. A lot of people really love it. A lot of people really hate it. Objectively, it's not very good, but it's funny. Also, you notice this giant frog here is Wart from the US version of Super Mario Bros. 2. Apparently, after that game, because I guess Wart was a dream in that game, he hopped over to the Windfish's dream and just decided to take up residence here and start a band. So yeah, if you've ever been curious about what happened at the end of Super Mario Bros. 2, what happened to Wart after you force-fed him veggies, he decided to go to another dream and start a band. So, also in this game, because this is the weirdest game in the Zelda series, Link is also a necromancer. The song we just learned is good enough that it's actually able to resurrect the dead. So we've brought this rooster back to life. And I have named this rooster Knuckles, which is somewhat of a fitting name if you're familiar with various Sonic speedruns. Oh, this is another little fun dashing section I really like. If you're familiar with the game Sonic Boom, the character Knuckles in that game is basically breaks that game. And the Knuckles in this game, this rooster, basically does the same thing. Very much breaks this game. So this is a trick called Flame Cave Skip, and be quiet while I do it here. There we go, first try. So we're able to abuse the rooster and just jump up the cliff. We don't have to go through the flame cave where you have to have the mirror shield. So we're able just to get the Dungeon 8 right away. So we get up here and we play that song again and we wake up this turtle dragon thing who's been sleeping in the rocks for a while. And who is the guardian to... I don't really know how this thing lives, because its body is a dungeon inside. So if you're familiar again with Link to the Past, the final dungeon in that game is called Turtle Rock. And this game kind of echoes that. This is also Turtle Rock. The difference being is you actually kill a turtle to get into this one, so it's definitely interesting. But kind of the theme of this dungeon is everything is like kind of fire-based, and there's also some ice in here, so kind of echoing that theming from A Link to the Past, well, where we kind of have a fire and ice theme going on here, though I would say it's like 95% fire and like 5% ice. Yeah, so this is where our bomb count really counted. Pun completely intended. Because we have just enough bombs to kind of make it through here before we can get another pickup. I believe we have like 2 or 3 extra that we can work with. Although I would say most of the runs I end up doing, I end up just kind of being like having 1 extra bomb. So yeah, bomb counts are pretty tight in this category. 80% they're not as tight because you can just go buy bombs, and you're able to just to stock up. But unfortunately, we don't have that in this particular category. Now, again, to bring up the differences between 80% and 80% no Hinox warp. This dungeon is not really done in 80% anymore. There is another Hinox mini-boss in this dungeon. So, normally in 80% when you come in here, you just go straight to that mini-boss, and you warp directly to the instrument room. And, you just complete it. I think the dungeon is all of, like, maybe 2 minutes long. You really don't spend any time here. And we will see that Hinox and actually kill it. But again, in this category, we don't do that, so we actually play out the dungeon. One of the side effects in any percent from doing that as well is in any percent you don't pick up the fire rod, which presents a bit of an interesting problem. My movement's kind of bad there. Because the fire rod is one of 2 methods that can actually kill the final boss. So this is Blano, and Blano tries to kill me here. He's bringing boxing gloves to a sword fight. Unfortunately, he's being a bit of a pest today. Ideally, you want to get him bunched up against the wall there, and you just sword him in the back to death. But my movement was a bit bad there. But pretty easy fight overall. Anyways, so here's the magic rod. So you don't get this in 80%. So the other weapon that can kill the final boss at 80% is the bow. Which means that you have to have enough arrows for the final boss. Which requires 10 arrows. So at 80% you cannot waste any arrows. You have to have enough arrows for the final boss. But in this game, if for some reason we screw up our arrow count, which shouldn't happen, we do actually have a backup. Where we have the magic rod, which can also kill the final boss. Now that was the Hinox. Normally, in 80%, that's where you head straight away, is just to that mini-boss. Yeah, you just warp straight to, technically the boss room, but you're able to get into the instrument room from the boss room right away. So, we did all that just to get a small key. I always call this the loading dungeon, because you end up having to reload in here, I think 3 or 4 times. So you get the magic rod, you reload, you get a small key, you reload. Now we're going to get the boss key, and we're going to reload. So this is kind of the ice portion of the dungeon. It's only really in these 2D sections, where you just use the fire rod to burn that ice away. So this is a repeat of the mini-boss in Dungeon 4, except it's more annoying now. And I completely messed it up. But we'll regroup here. Well, maybe not. Well, unfortunately I messed up the cycle on this boss. It can be a little bit on the bothersome side. But that should, well, I thought that would finish it off. This is not a great boss to mess the cycle up on. As you can see, it ends up wasting a fair amount of time, unfortunately. There we go. That finished it off. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to time it to where each of the of those arrows just hits it. And it takes, I believe, 5 arrows, and then you use a sword slash to finish it off. So ideally, that fight goes a lot smoother and a lot faster. But fortunately, I guess I'm not on my A game at the moment. And kind of similar to Dungeon 6, this dungeon can kind of be a place where the difficulty kind of spikes again. I guess naturally being the final dungeon of the game, technically. You kind of get into a position where, you know, things can actually kind of go bad in here and can potentially end your run. Stuff like that happens. Again, if this were a not a marathon run, I would have had reset probably a long time ago. So here we got a little bit more of this ice going on. Also, shout out to Goombas. I don't think I ever pointed out that there's Goombas in this game, because Zelda, why wouldn't there be Goombas? One of the life improvements in this game from the original is originally if you run up against those ice blocks in the original, you get text boxes that would pop up. It's horrible. So this is Hothead. This is a very RNG-y type boss, very annoying, but we will do our best here. Sometimes you can get the positioning right where you're able to just hit it a whole bunch and just be done with it. And then sometimes it likes to troll you. There we go. And that's Hothead. So I'm actually going to skip that piece of heart there. I feel like my health is okay enough that we'll save some time there and continue on. And we got the Octopus Trommel. So it's the Octopus Drum in German, or the, I believe it's the Thunder Drum in English. But yeah. So now that we've done Dungeon 8, we're going to get to Dungeon 7. We're going to keep doing things out of order here. Split. So we saw a little bit before with Knuckles here that he's a little bit broken, and we're actually going to break the game a little bit more with him. So as you can see, we got on top of those rocks where you shouldn't really go. With Knuckles, and then we're also going to have Knuckles send us under the ground. So we're going to do that, and we glitch into the ground. That's actually a trick that I believe was found on, I want to say day 1 or 2 of this game being out. It's actually incredibly easy to do. So if you've ever played this game casually, there's actually a fairly good chance that you just accidentally did that glitch on your own. But yeah, we're able just to kind of go through the ground there and go back behind the Windfish's egg and just go ahead and yeah, just skip all these caves and stuff where we don't have to do stuff in there. So I'll be a little bit safe here and just use the rooster to go around this as intended. You can just use Pegasus boots and jumping in this cave, which is faster. But if you fall down one of those holes, it's it doesn't end your run, but you're going to lose so much time you might as well reset. So we're just going to do a little bit of safety there. But yeah, so we just picked up the key to Dungeon 7. It's kind of funny, in the original Game Boy games, you actually skipped getting the rooster completely. You had an actual rooster skip, and you would pick up that key with a weird hookshot glitch. And you just would end up getting the rooster, whereas in this game, the rooster is like completely broken, and we use it for a bunch of things. We're actually in the process of trying to find out a way to get the rooster earlier in the game. Because if we're able to get the rooster earlier than Dungeon 8, it really will end up like breaking the game, and we could probably just end up skipping huge portions of the game and saving a lot of time. But So far, we haven't quite been able to find a way to get there yet. We have some theories. It's kind of our Great Barrier skip for this game, if you're familiar with that term from Wind Waker speedrunning. We're working on it. So this is another instance where our routes deviate pretty heavily with any percent. Because in any percent, you just do not do this dungeon. So there's another Hinox in this dungeon, and it is definitely, it is the reason why the no Hinox category, or no Hinox warp category exists. Well, this little trick here is deciding to heck me there. There we go. Just kind of glitch over those blocks. Ideally, you want to do that a lot faster, but it didn't quite work out that way. But yeah, in any percent, you just get to this Hinox, and the tricky part with the Hinox in this particular dungeon is that it is a frame-perfect trick. So you have to go through some very specific movements to set Link's X and Y coordinates to send you to the instrument room. And then you have to execute the trick frame perfectly. And at the end of the day, it's very difficult. It's very precise. Again, you can kind of see we're over an hour into the run. Any percent, you'd be like an hour into the run. And failing that trick can just kind of end your run, especially at like higher levels. So it can just end up being very frustrating. And we are really concerned, especially with newer runners, kind of getting frustrated with potentially trying to do that trick and moving on. So it's a big reason why this category was made, where we just don't even mess with that trick at all. And now with the D2 Hinox warp that's been found, where it's a lot harder to get a run going past the early game, this category has become a lot more appealing. So this is a fun little trick here called Cannonball. Ideally you want to do it with just 2 bombs, but we end up having to use 3 there. Where we're able just to kind of clip inside that ball and get it to let us jump over that little fence. And yeah, just glitch it out. Okay, so this is the hardest boss fight in the game. We need to hope we have a good pattern here, and yep, we got it. Alright. So it's actually the easiest boss fight in the game. You just stand in that corner and swing your sword, and you just win. It's kind of ridiculous. But that was the Grim Creeper, who's been locked up inside this dungeon a little bit too long. His dialogue is quite humorous, I feel like. We'll end up seeing him again here before we leave. That's also kind of an interesting little quirk of this game too, is like a lot of the boss characters talk to you. Not that that's unique to this game, but it is kind of interesting how I think almost every boss will talk to you. I think Gigglezole is kind of the exception. Alright, so these enemies are called 3 of a kind, and as you can see, your goal is to get them to be 3 of a kind, and they're unfortunately very annoying, very RNG heavy, and a total pain. Yeah, so this is the Hinox where you would abuse it at any percent to warp us to the instrument room, ideally, although it doesn't usually work out that way, at least for me. So we're just gonna bypass it completely here. So this dungeon is kind of unique. If you've played this casually, you're aware of this, but there's a top floor to this dungeon that you can't actually access. And the only way to access it is you have to destroy those 4 pillars with that cannonball item. So it's really unique, especially on the old Game Boy game, where you have to kind of do this really unique mechanic where you break these pillars and then you can access the boss. Definitely adds a little uniqueness to it. more Goombas here. Just, you know, in a Zelda game, because why wouldn't you have Goombas in a Zelda game? Alright, so this is the next boss up here. This is Evil Eagle, so we'll meet Grim Creeper here again. And he's mad at us because we killed his little fly things there. So he's going to summon his eagle friend, and they're going to fight us together. And this fight is definitely one of the more frustrating fights just because it has a lot of RNG to it. Sometimes you can just get some bad patterns, and it can just be very frustrating. It can do this trick where it tries to blow you off, and that's like kind of bad because you don't want that to happen. It's a lot slower, although we're able to mitigate some of the speed issues by going down the ladder. So that was actually a pretty good fight. We only had one bad pattern there, and yeah, it's pretty quick. So we're going to skip that heart piece again. Typically, I will pick up a heart piece when my health is low. It's kind of my indicator. So when I'm at full health like this, I'm not particularly worried. And we have just enough arrows. So at this point in the game, we want to have at least 11 arrows. I have 12 here. It's kind of a buffer. But so we will need to use one more arrow before the final boss, and yeah. So now that we've done Dungeon 7, we need to go wrap up the other two dungeons that we haven't finished yet. So the first one we're going to tackle is Dungeon 4. Which is the Angler Tunnel, once again. So yeah, this is definitely like a really fun speed run. I always get a little bit sad toward this hit part of the run because it's like, oh, it's almost over. But yeah, I highly recommend if you're interested going to speedrun.com and searching it up and get into the Discord. And Discord community is really awesome. We're all there, you know, helping each other get better at this game. And yeah. So this little puzzle here is RNG based. So there's a different pattern every time you play this game. However, we're actually able to manipulate that RNG. So we get the same pattern every time. And if you've been watching since the start of the run, we have, we started this game with a pre-made file. And that file is pre-made because we did a certain timing, what you call it, we did a thing where we reset the console and timed entering the game from a very specific timing situation. And that actually allows us to manipulate the RNG of that puzzle. It also lets us manipulate the RNG of getting to the final boss. So if you're familiar with this game, to get to the final boss, you have to do a specific maze puzzle. Alright, so we have to do a thing here. Blubber blubber, blub blub blub, fudder, blub, blubber blubber. Piranha killer. So you have to read that a specific way in honor of Tej, or TGH, who's the world record holder for multiple categories of this game. He always reads that in a super deadpan manner. Cracks me up every time. If you get to watch his stream, it's wonderful and beautiful. So I like to replicate his line reading there for good luck. But that was the boss of Dungeon 4. You can see, super easy. Probably one of the easiest bosses in the game, and we're done with it. What was I saying before? Yeah, I was talking about the, yeah, if you want to speedrun this game, you know, I highly recommend this category to start with. You don't have to start with all the tricks. You can always start you know, you can always start with like glitchless if you don't want to do any tricks, or you can just start with some of the easier tricks and work your way up. And there's a lot of little alternatives that exist, and everyone in the community is like super sweet and super willing to help. I didn't need to pause there, but I did anyway. You have to make sure you warp to the right spot in this game. If you don't go to this specific warp and you go further south on the map, the ghost will spawn, and you're not able to go into any dungeons until you finish the ghost side quest. But fortunately, we have avoided that issue, and we're good. Forgot to split. Alright. So I mentioned before that, you know, we didn't finish this dungeon because we have a way to skip the boss in here. And after we pick up the boss key here, we'll be doing Genie Skip, which involves doing a very, very specific glitch using the Pegasus boots. But basically what ends up happening is we're going to glitch Link's body inside of the bottle that the genie boss resides in, right against the ball store. And ideally it's going to send us through, well, that fairy will pick up there. There we go. It'll send us through that ball store, and it ends up skipping the fight. So it is definitely one of the harder tricks in the game. There is a chance that I won't get it. If I don't get it, there is a little backup we could try. If we don't get the backup, we'll just have to fight the boss. But hopefully I'll be able to show it off here, and we'll get to see... we'll get to see not seeing the boss. This fight is very annoying, casually. It's very long. And it has like 2 phases to it, which is kind of odd and unique. I'm actually going to mute my audio. I have trouble doing this trick with sound. I'll be quiet here while I do this trick. So fortunately we were a little bit early there. So we're going to try the backup. Hopefully we'll get it on the backup here. The backup is a little bit specific. Sometimes the positioning is just off a little bit and it doesn't work. If that's the case, we'll just have to fight it casually. But we don't have to. We got the trick. So that is Genie Skip. So ideally, you don't want to. You just want to do that on the first round. But we caught it on the backup there, and we'll go with that. Now my hearts are a little bit low, which makes the final boss a little bit daunting. I may try to pick up some extra hearts on the way there. We'll see if we can get a few to spawn. We don't want to move too far outside of certain bounds, or the ghost will spawn. Yeah. Oh, there we go. We grabbed a heart just coming right out, so I feel pretty confident with that. Oops. So our owl friend will come here and talk to us a couple more times. So we kind of bit ado. We have all the instruments now, so we can go wake up the windfish. We can finish off the nightmares here and escape the island, and kind of have this anxiety of you know, this island's going to maybe disappear when we wake up the windfish. So we'll have to see. But I'll let the music play out here because it's really pretty, and I'll let you enjoy that. And that egg is going to crack now. There we go. That's one giant scrambled egg right there. So we've broken the egg. Don't exactly know why we needed instruments to do that, but we did. And so now we have the final. So I guess I was talking about before. So we manipulated the RNG for Dungeon 4. That same RNG seed ends up manipulating the dungeon here. Sorry, I have to look at my notes here. This is a different seed than I'm used to. It's a new seed I picked up, so I haven't quite memorized it yet. So 3, 4. So normally when you come in here, you have to go through this whole side quest where you get a magnifying lens, and you go to the library and you read a book, and it lights up the hallways in there, and you know where to go. But because we can manipulate RNG, we don't have to do any of that, so it saves a lot of time. And this is the final boss here. So this boss is kind of interesting. We'll see some familiar faces from Link to the Past here, along with some familiar faces from this game. But this is Nightmare, and this is the source of all the trouble. We're gonna finish it off. So it's first form here is just a big old Zol gel thing. Take it out. Now the second form will look pretty familiar. This is Aghanim from Link to the Past, and he can really troll us. He can give us some RNG there. So you see how he shot out some blue balls there. But we want him to shoot fireballs, but it's totally RNG. Fortunately, he's giving me some pretty good RNG, so that's nice to see. Ow, that was a bad RNG, and I also got hit there, which is not ideal. There we go. Now Nightmare's going to turn into our good old friend Moldworm here is going to plague us one last time. My health here is a little bit on the terrifying side. Now there is a quick kill here, so we're going to now fight Ganon. And there is a quick kill to Ganon here, but it doesn't require 1 heart of damage. You can do it damageless, but it's very difficult. So we're going to play it safe here because we're 1 hit from death here. So it's a little bit scary right now. And this is Landmola phase, even though it looks nothing like Landmola. But we're done with that phase, so now we're going to fight the true form of Nightmare. This is Deathel. If you're familiar with Vati from Minish Cap, looks an awful lot like him. Probably was the inspiration for Vati. And this fight's actually pretty easy. Just time your jumps. It actually gets easier as it goes on, because the jump timing is actually easier. And that's it. And so time will be coming up here. After Deathel explodes and the stairs appear, we will walk up the stairs and finish the run. So that's a little bit scary there at the end. We're one hit from death, but we did it and we lived, and that's time. So 128.36, so that's not too bad. Definitely not a PB for me, but yeah. So that is Link's Awakening for the Nintendo Switch, and yeah, so that's kind of what you can expect in a marathon run. I did miss some tricks there and lost some time from what I normally do. Ideally, you know, I'll be well practiced and we won't miss those tricks, and I'll make sure to have a couple of different backup saves just in case anything goes awry. But yeah, so thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will see whoever sees this in a marathon. So thank you. Bye bye.